Greetings and welcome to another lecture in introductory psychology. This one involves hunger, but more specifically, it involves what I like to call why we eat when we're not hungry. Now, I talked before in another lecture about the physiology of hunger, about how and why our body sort of pushes us to eat, but this is more about how our minds push us to eat. And for anybody who's ever tried to be on a diet or stay on one or change the way that they eat, you know that this can be very, very difficult. Because it's not only our physiological cues that tell us to eat, it's also in some ways our thoughts and our environment. And sometimes it's both. Have you ever just been walking, say, down a street, minding your own business, and then all of a sudden you get a whiff of something that smells absolutely delicious, and then you're just starving? Or you've been up late at night watching TV because you can't get to sleep, and suddenly there's a commercial about food. The food looks so good that you're almost literally drooling like one of Pavlov's dogs. Then you've run into the joy of food-related cues. Now, what's happening here is actually a combination of physiology and psychology, although it actually leans more toward the physiology part. Because up until relatively recently in the history of our species, when you could see food, it meant that there was actual food there and you could therefore eat it. You know, it's only been in the last couple of thousand years that we've had pictures of food, and certainly even the pictures aren't necessarily good enough, with some exceptions, until maybe the last 500 years or so to make people hungry, and we've only had TV for less than 100 years. So it's relatively recent that this sort of seeing food but not having it around us is a problem. So when you see food or you smell food, your body assumes that you're going to eat it. And it assumes this, of course, because our species evolved living on the edge of starvation. So therefore, if there's food available, your body is urging you to eat it because you don't know when you might get food next. Well, of course, you know, your conscious mind knows, but your body is doing the thinking for you, and it doesn't know. It assumes that just like most of the history of our species, and like an unfortunate number of people today, we're living on the edge of starvation. And therefore, anytime you see food or you're near food, you better eat it, because, as I mentioned, you never know when your next meal is coming from. So when we see food or we smell food, our bodies get ready for us to eat that food because it assumes that's coming. Now remember, I was talking about homeostasis. I was talking about that level of blood sugar that our body is trying to keep us at. And if you go too far above it, it's bad. If you go too far below it, it's bad. Well, if you go and you eat something with a lot of carbohydrates in it, your blood sugar is going to soar. And so what your body does is it prepares for that. Okay, it prepares for that. And so when it sees that there is food here and you're going to be eating this food, your body assumes, your body prepares for the coming of the food by releasing insulin. This insulin causes your blood sugar to drop, and therefore it causes you to be ready for when you eat to get that surge of sugar coming into your blood. If you've ever heard of people sometimes say, I didn't know I was hungry till I sat down at the table, and then I was almost faint, I was so hungry. That's probably from the drop in blood sugar that they were having, which can indeed make you feel faint. Now, of course, also, from the prior lecture, if your blood sugar drops, you get hungry. Okay? Yes, eventually the glucagon will kick in, but it's easier for you to just eat food when your blood sugar drops. So if you wind up basically seeing this food, your blood sugar drops, you eat food, everybody's happy. The problem, of course, is that this can indeed make us hungry when we're not. At a school I work for, we used to bake bread every morning. We had a bread machine. We'd bake bread, and the smell of that baking bread would just waft through the hallways, and everyone who stepped into the hallway would immediately just be faint with hunger. They'd just be starving. Why? Because when they sniffed the bread, their body said, "Oh, bread is coming!" Released insulin, dropped the blood sugar. Interestingly enough, there's some evidence that drinking diet sodas can do the same thing. Diet sodas have no calories, but when you drink something that tastes sweet, your body assumes that sugar is coming, and it will drop your blood sugar, sometimes precipitously drop it. And when the beverage that you just drank doesn't give you any calories, people find out that they're hungry. Someone actually measured, they did a study, and looked at how many calories total people consumed when they were given a sugary soda versus a diet soda. They measured the total number of calories they consumed. People were allowed to eat as much as they wanted. They found the people that consumed the diet soda ate more calories overall in total. They avoided the sugar calories from the soda, but they ate more of other things. And it's hard to tell whether that was because people were thinking to themselves, oh, I'm having a diet soda, so now I can have a large fry instead of a medium, or if it was simply that when they drank the diet soda and their blood sugar dropped and they got nothing from it, they ate more to compensate for it. It's difficult to tell. But yes, food can make us hungry even if we don't eat it. Also, by the way, having a little taste of something can make you hungry too. We'll get to why that could be a problem in a minute or so. Our emotions can cause us to eat. Eating is very satisfying. You have this internal state of tension, this hunger, that when you eat, you get rid of it. It's negatively reinforcing, and it's severely negatively reinforcing. I mean, we've learned this since the day we were born, essentially, that eating makes us feel better. And so therefore, for a lot of people, particularly when they're feeling negative emotions, they're stressed, they're unhappy, they're bored, they eat. So that can be a real problem. They may not be hungry, but they eat. I'm a big procrastination eater. And it's partly because I don't want to do whatever it is that I'm procrastinating, so I'm a little stressed, so that makes me want to eat. But also, I have said to myself, if I'm preparing food or eating or cleaning up after I eat, I don't have to do that task I'm procrastinating. So between the boredom eating, the stress eating, and the procrastination eating, yeah, it's not pretty. So emotions can definitely, there are people who eat when they're happy, but I suspect they're vastly outnumbered by the people who eat when they're not happy. After all, think of the stereotype. Someone gets broken up with, they're very unhappy. What do? They hole up with ice cream or pizza or beer or something along those lines, all of which have a lot of calories. But I also don't want to discount social demands. Sometimes we eat because it's expected of us. A child may not be hungry, but the parent says, look, your Aunt Edna just spent hours making this meal for you. You need to eat it. And so they eat it. Or children are told that they have to clean their plate before they can leave the table. What does that teach them? It teaches them that even if they're not hungry, they need to keep eating. That's not necessarily good. By the way to get around that is to simply not allow any snacking in between meals. Because a lot of times kids will not eat meals because they know that they can snack later and eat the foods they want. But at any rate, I digress. People eat because it's considered impolite to not eat around others who are eating. Think about it. You go out with a bunch of friends, you're not hungry, everyone else is eating. The odds are your friends are going to be going, oh, come on, just get something. Because it's considered rude to eat in front of someone who is not eating. And so therefore the person who's not hungry may eat a little something just to make everyone else feel better, and then may all of a sudden find that they're hungry even though they don't really need the fuel, and so forth and so on and on. Or to get back on a variant, there are some cultures where it's considered impolite to not eat everything that you're given, or to eat huge amounts of food. It's just what you do. And if you think that our culture is not one of those, go to somebody's Thanksgiving feast and take like a small piece of turkey and a little dab of dressing and maybe half a salad, and see how much people start telling you that you're not eating enough and you need to eat more. So there are definitely social reasons that we eat as well. All of these reasons are reasons why we eat when we're not physically hungry, or at least when we don't physiologically need the calories. And all of these are things that we need to take care of, basically, should a person wish to lose weight and keep the weight off.